it's time. Hi everyone, welcome. I don't know.
Okay, we don't need it anyway.
Yeah, I'm gonna yell. It's fine. So my name is actually Oliver. I have a YouTube channel where I go through and I play through video games. I focus on the stories in those games, give commentary, things like that. I'm trying to do, audible video game version. My channel's Video Game Exploration with Ashley Oliver, and these are my lovely friends who are helping me with this today.
My name's Charles Oliver. I actually ended up, Zelda was my first real video game where I actually got to get along with my parents. Now, if you didn't know this, Zelda was the first video game that I ever played that you could save. And that made a huge difference to me because in the previous video games, you had to play as much as possible in a short period of time, or you had to go through and put down some weird long code that if you misspelled it, meant that you started over from your previous thing and had to make sure to keep track of that piece of paper. So for me, this video game made me get along with my parents because I could actually save, quit, and didn't have to keep my video game on.
Hi, I'm Kaitlyn. I'm dressed as Rivali, obviously. My Instagram is on there. It's the true visual. I cosplay semi-often. I don't post anything else.
Alright. So we are here to discuss how Tears of the Kingdom, big open world game, actually has a linear plot. If you have not had the opportunity to play and care, there are spoilers. There will be spoilers. So if you care,
Spoiler alert.
yes. So just to give anyone who's not aware some background, in Breath of the Wild, it was, an open world game. Once you got through the tutorial section of the Great Plateau, you could literally go anywhere. They gave you no directions. Me personally, it took me a really long time to get off the Great Plateau just because I was running around exploring everything before I jumped off. What's fun is that, you can, on the Great Plateau, you can literally go anywhere on the Great Plateau too. You don't immediately have to go down and talk to the old man, even though it's being like, hey, you should probably go talk to that dude. You can literally just turn around and go up the mountain if you want. What were your guys' experience with Breath of the Wild, and how do you feel about the open format?
I'll let you go first.
Okay. So the open world format was obviously some kind of dispartment. There's a word here I'm looking for. But departure from the original Zelda game function of how you played in the story. But it was a very good game. And there was one direction, it was free the divine beasts, and that was it. There was one direction.
I actually loved the game because instead of having a game where you had to go through and you had to complete this boss first, it was sort of like they built an open world and said, go get it. So for the people, it let people adapt their own game style to it, and instead of being forced into a certain format, once you complete the beginning area, open world, whatever you want, I loved it because it allowed you to choose what order the story got told in versus being told, here's what the story has to be in.
So a lot of people have compared it. You talked about the very first Zelda game. Did you say it was pretty, essence-wise, very similar to the very first Zelda game?
I would agree with you that it is in essence. Now, some of them you had to complete in a certain order, but you could actually go through, I'll be honest, the first Zelda game, I think it was the 7th or 8th temple, couldn't beat it. Couldn't figure out you were supposed to push one small block and go through and do it, but I think they did a much better job in Breath of the Wild, making it more adaptive to your play style versus have to shoehorn in order to get everything to work.
They're older than me, so I didn't play the original Zelda.
So, as Kaitlyn mentioned, you had the main quest, which was free the divine beasts. There was also a second main quest, defeat Ganon, which for all of you, a lot of have heard that, Speedrunners went through, got off the Great Plateau as fast as they could, and then went and go beat up Ganon with, no armor, very little weaponry, and like you could do that in this game. That was an option. So with me personally, like I don't have a lot of skill, so I didn't go and try to beat Ganon first. I would go and free the Divine Beast. My first playthrough it, I went and freed Varuta first. And whenever I found out that Varuta gave me the healing ability, I was like, oh yes, this is going to save me a whole lot. And after that, I would go through and I just kind of did a big circle with Death Mountain, with Hebra, finished it off with the Gerudo Desert. And that's how my play style went. How was your guys' play style?
I did a lot of running around and just mucking about in Breath of the Wild, and second picture, don't get it twisted. But in Breath of the Wild, like the first one I did was also Varuta, because when you run around the like Hyrule Field area, you run into Zora. You don't run into any other races, but you run into Zora that are like, hey, Sidon is looking for a Hylian. And it just kind of pushed me in that direction. And I kind of zigzagged across the map. I went to Hebra next, and then I think I did Vandamoris next, and then I did Death Mountain, because I didn't care about Varadania. No offense to anyone who just loves Varadania, but I didn't like Varadania.
I ended up doing a beeline to the upper left corner and getting Rivali's Gale. I didn't know that there was a Hylian until like halfway through my gameplay that they sent a fish person, and I'm like, what is this? But I ended up getting Rivali's Gale. Then I ended up going through and getting Mipha's Grace, because who doesn't love healing abilities? Who doesn't love that second chance whenever you accidentally turn a corner and you end up with a monster that you can't quite win against?
So we're going to move on to the Tears of the Kingdom here. For the rest of the panel, just to give you some background, there are 4 key pieces of evidence that we've come up with that kind of outlines the linear plot. Side quests may or may not make things easier for you, as you progress through the game. And the dragon tiers within the game, they're optional, but doing them without doing them in the correct order, like I did it by region, like whatever region I happened to be in, I also went and found the dragon's tier. It will give you lots of spoilers if you do it that way. So if you haven't beaten the game yet and you haven't gotten through that section, understand. If you want to understand the whole story before you get everything, you kind of have to start with beginning with the dragon tiers.
It's admittedly like a pretty bad game design to have the dragon tiers just out and about without any real direction of where you're supposed to go, because you could at least like 2 of them I know, they ruined the whole plot immediately.
I thought it was the dragon tiers were interesting. I confess, if you were someone who wanted all the fast travel points, the dragon tiers made things so much easier to find once you had those tiers, or once you had the towers to go through and spot them. And I had to pause at the very end and go through and play them just to understand what the story was, but I thought it was a really interesting system.
So here's a map of Tears of the Kingdom laid out. It didn't change a whole lot from Breath of the Wild, so if you've seen that map, you've pretty much seen this map. This is just here so that if we make a reference to something and you've not seen the map before, you kind of have an idea of what we might be talking about. So the first piece of evidence that we have is that there is actually a hub city in Tears of the Kingdom. Lookout Landing. Anytime you're not sure like what I should be doing next for the main plot, you would go to Lookout Landing, talk to Pura, and she would tell you, what your next steps are. So for me, that's what I did. It's like as soon as I, got to Lookout Landing and they said, hey, go help the Rito, I was like, okay, I've helped the Rito. Let me go back to Lookout Landing, see if she says anything else, like where she recommends that I go, and she did. She gave me recommendations on where I could go next.
I think they actually tell you at the end of each temple, like, hey, you should go check out Lookout Landing. Yeah, I think they actually tell you that in the game.
So it was encouraging you to, if you weren't playing like Kaitlyn was and just going all over the place wherever your fancy little heart decided to take you.
I played this game the most insane way possible, and you will learn that.
Then you have an idea of where you want to go next. What was your experience with, Lookout Landing, Chuck?
I liked Lookout Landing because it gave me a good idea of where to go at first. Like, the big thing is that unless you have an idea of where you're going to at the beginning, then it kind of makes it difficult. However, giving you a big open world, giving you a direction, made things easier because you first got your piece. Then I may have ignored the hub for a good chunk of the game.
So there are other games that have hub cities, hub worlds in them that have a very linear format. There's Fallout, there's the World of Warcrafts, you have Overmar for the Horde side, you have Stormwind for the Alliance side, and then in Tears of the Kingdom you have, okay, I can't say that word right now.
Which one?
The Kingdom Hearts Town.
Kingdom Hearts Traverse Town.
Traverse Town. Okay, yeah, that's a word that
No. Yes.
Yes, maybe.
It's something close to that.
Yeah.
Go.
It's Traverse Town.
It's Traverse Town? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, audience member.
So hub cities, hub worlds are, a good stable spot for you to, if you're not sure where to go next, where you should go. Chuck, you've played a lot of WoW. What are your thoughts and feelings on hub cities?
I think that having an initial place to go so you don't get lost is helpful. Just giving you an idea of, here, I know this place is always going to be my North Star, that I can go here, and it'll tell me where the next place to go, because the last thing you want to do is to jump in, then all of a sudden find that you're jumping into an area that is way higher level than you, and getting frustrated because of it. Having clear storylines or places to go makes that whole experience a whole lot easier.
What about you, Caitlin? What are your thoughts on hub cities?
Hub cities, I like that they change. Most other places, when it comes to games with a hub city, most other places stay similar after you finish the story there, but when you go back to the hub city, something always changes. There's always something new there. It makes the game feel alive.
So the second piece of evidence that we have is that Tears of the Kingdom has a lot of environmental puzzles. There's several different environments that you have to try to survive through, and the very first environmental puzzle that you end up getting is in the Great Sky Island. One of the shrines is in an ice area where if you don't have the appropriate clothes or you don't have the meals prepared for it, you end up taking damage whenever you go out in these freezing conditions. Luckily, the game sets you up where it'll give you the food items and explain to you, if you talk to the right characters, how to make these food items. After that, you went to the Heber region, which is another cold region. You've already received gear from the Great Sky Island on how to survive this sort of area. How did you guys feel about, going from the Great Sky Islands to Heber?
I didn't. Very simple. I played this game and I got to the hub city. I got to Lookout Landing and went peace, and I went to all the towers, and then I got shrines, and then I avoided every town, every story plot, and then I started doing things.
I too wanted to go through and beef up my hearts just a little bit, just because I wanted to be able to get, if nothing else, the fast travel points, so that way I didn't spend the latter part of my game going through and running around.
Yes.
Who needs hearts when you got stamina? I went for the stamina, baby.
So after that, according to the plot, once you go back to Lookout Landing, the next area I suggest you go is Death Mountain. Death Mountain has cooled down from the previous game, so it's much easier to navigate. There are lots of ore deposits around there, so you can get all the different gemstones and then sell them at the shop, so that if you want to buy the fireproof suit, you can. Or you can gather the fireproof lizards and the smotherwing butterflies in that area, because that's where they're native to, and you can craft potions that way. So each area is giving you the skills you need and the materials you need in order to get things done. So, how did you handle getting through Death Mountain, Caitlin?
I didn't go into any of the caves. Simple enough. I went and got the armor I needed, and then I went to the caves. I don't use items. I hoard them. My pockets are full of stuff.
I did eventually go to Death Mountain. I was trying to see if they had a Mipha's Grace in this game, and went down to try to get the into the water region in order to try to get it, and You all know how that goes.
So speaking of Lanayru, it's not a very harsh environment in the game, but it's covered in what they call the sludge, and that stuff slows your movements down. So it can make it really difficult to, deal with some of the enemies in that area because you're not moving as fast if you're covered in sludge. But again, in this environment, they gave you the splash fruit, which gets rid of the sludge. What are your guys' thoughts on the sludge?
I have a quick question for the audience. How did all of you guys deal with the sludge? So I know that some of us went through doing the sludge without realizing you could use certain items to your benefit. Anyone want to participate? Go on.
I would just use like the splash fruit and then shoot it with an arrow, or sometimes with like a disposable weapon, like a stick.
All right. Any others?
I have a fire hydrant above my head. I thought of it. So,
See, this is the thing that I think you didn't realize. I used the opal and put it on a staff and just used water magic to clear all the sludge.
Yeah, it took me a little bit to figure out, what the opal actually did. Because I was like, okay, there's the ice thing, there's the fire thing. There should be a water thing, right? Which one is it?
I think it says in the description of the items.
Yeah, but how often do you stop and read that?
Oh, never. I happened to read that one.
I'll be honest, I was harvesting splash fruit in order to be able to beat them. It wasn't until I went into the depths and was finding the copy of it that Ashley's like, oh, by the way, they have a wand. And I'm like, what? Where have you been all my life?
And then the Gerudo Desert is the last environmental puzzle area. It has both hot and cold temperatures because it's like a real life desert. Hot during the day, cold at night. And by this point, since this is the last area that they recommend you go to, you should have gathered plenty of gear, plenty of food in order to navigate this area. How did you guys handle the Gerudo Desert?
I traveled at night. During the day, I hid in caves and then traveled at night because I already had the gold armor.
Personally, I did it last, but I would like to also hear, how did you handle the desert?
Anyone want to share?
Share with the folks.
Nope. Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, right.
So,
Oh, you have one?
Sure.
I just basically, when I went to environmental areas, I just use my equipment I had. If I'm going to a hot area, I put on a fireproof armor. A cold area, I wear my Hebrew suits, that kind of thing.
right.
See, but there's some of us that are eternally broke.
I usually just use the food bucks. I did a lot with like the food and the food effects, like trying to max out the effects, like get it to the highest level and in the longest period of time. So when you can get it to where it's like it'll give you like a 10 minutes duration, I would just like stack up on those and then go like in one big trip.
I've got one. Do you guys know that you can put the elemental gems on your shield and just have that and it'll either warm you up in cold environments or in cold environments, put the hot on it, keep you warm? Found that out.
What were you going to say?
I just use lots of healing items.
Just beast it.
Yeah.
That is a way to do it.
So, other games that have environmental puzzles, Hell World, My Time in Sandrock, Fallout, Poppy's Playtime, Bioshock, they all have different environmental puzzles where either you're not the right level for it to be able to craft the gear for it, or you didn't, go to the spot where you needed to go in order to get the gear first.
Yeah, certain items.
I got introduced to Poppy's Playtime, I had no idea it existed, and she was the one.
That's me. I'm a FNAF kid, so Poppy's Playtime is just the next level, baby.
And then the third evidence that we have is there is scaling difficulty. The enemies change as you gain more hearts and you beat more dungeons. The constructs are the ones that you mainly run into whenever you are in the dungeons. So the more you conquer, you can see their nice little headpieces here. Their headpieces start to change, indicating that, our gentleman, with the big, axe head spike, not the, hammer head spike. That one's kind of a, general in the army, so he's not someone to trifle with. So Kaitlyn, you were talking about how you ran around and gathered all the shrines before you went into the dungeons. How were the constructs?
Do you know how mad I was when I did the first dungeon? I did I did the Stormwind arc. Do you know how mad I was when I got in there and there were white goblins or silver goblins and there were level 4 constructs in there? That was the first one I did, and I'd already beat myself up so much that there was already that, and I was so mad. I was gonna be like, oh, this is gonna be so easy. It was not easy.
It's a great way to do it. The only hitch that I ran into is whenever you do that, if you don't get all the construct parts, you're now having to hunt level 1s, find where they spawn naturally, in order to go through and get the pieces you need to craft the gear, to upgrade it, and I'm just like...
The Gyptos and the Gypto Queens are, really hard to kill. Because, again, this is supposed to be like one of the last areas that you go to. So, whenever you try to hit them with normal damage weapons, they don't take a whole lot of damage. But, if you deal an elemental damage to them, which we've talked about, the splash fruit, different, gemstones that you can collect in Death Mountain, these do elemental damage, so if you attach them to your weapons, they start taking normal damage from them again because your weapon has an elemental type to it. And so, how did you guys feel about fighting the Queen Gypto and all them guys?
Everyone took an L during the Queen Gypto fight, okay? I used a lot of elemental items and weapons for the whole temple. Didn't realize that the light pillars, that when you take the mushrooms out, did not know that they hurt the Gypto. Found that out when I was talking to you, actually. I was talking to Purr over here, and she was like, oh yeah, the light hurts them, and I was like, that makes so much sense because the sand shroud, that's why they're on the staircase. Didn't realize that. I just used elemental items and beat them up, essentially.
It took me a little bit of time to go through and do a little bit of give and take, but I like the fact that they introduced the Gyptos before you actually did the Gypto Queen. Who else found that particular boss to be interesting or at least difficult?
I did.
I found it difficult mainly because I have no idea how to use the bow good.
Yeah, I'm
I
not.
have to
There's,
try to switch it over just so I can get the right angle to hit.
yeah, I feel you. There's a reason why I don't play shooter games. Because
Listen, motion controls are my best friend. Alright? I played Splatoon. Motion controls are my best friend. I'm so good at the bow because of them. Don't ask me to use a regular controller, though I can't play.
And then you also have the depths. This area is an area where you can get to it fairly early on. There's actually a side quest to go into it, again, fairly early. The problem is that the monsters down there are covered in the gloom, and the gloom, if you take damage from it, you lose hearts. You don't have access to those hearts anymore, even if you eat a healing food, unless that healing food has an ability to reduce gloom effects. So it's one of those things where the depths are a little difficult just because if you don't have the proper either gear or food for it, you can't just immediately go back up unless you have a teleport point that you're okay, I want to go to this teleport point. Otherwise, you're going to have to do a lot of backtracking in order to be all right, I can't do this right now, so I have to leave and then come back and figure out where I was. How did you guys handle the depths?
I didn't. Still haven't finished them. Don't ask me about them. I don't go there.
I got called crazy because the first thing I did was I got a few of the seed points, completed the little bit of quest that you have to complete, and then I'm like, ooh, there's a Lionel Coliseum? Let's go and conquer that! Part of it is that I got really good at headshotting them, and after going through and hitting them, if you're on the backs of them, you literally don't suffer weapon damage. So I would literally go through and conquer them because I wanted those 3-shot, 5-shot bows, because it made the game so much easier. Of course, I got called crazy from...
You are crazy. I'm bad at this game. I don't fight Lionels. I don't fight bosses. I can fight a Hinox, maybe. I don't fight things. I fought one Bleok, and I didn't die. I beat it. It sucked.
So other games that have scaling difficulty, WoW is a big example that I personally am aware of because, you know, you can start out in the level 1 to 10 area, but once you have free reign of your character, you can literally go wander into like a level 40 area and, you know, if you're not careful, get smoked. Skyrim also, if, you know, you don't follow their plot lines, it may be harder for you to find the path that you need to, you know, take in order to get to the next city over. And, you know, Fallout also has, you know, areas where if you wander into them and you don't have either the gear or the level to handle it, it's not going to be a fun time.
I don't remember. How many people play Fallout? Does anyone? Okay. Which Fallout is it that has scaling difficulty and makes like the enemies so easy, and then like you play one of the other Fallouts and they're so hard. Like this is specifically like the Death Stalker, I think is what it is. That enemy sucks. I think it's Fallout 3 or 4. One of those two has the scaling difficulty.
Fallout 3 I know has packs of Deathlock, but it made them seriously rough.
Okay, so it's not that one.
So, and our final piece of evidence that we have is for the 5th sage. Were you guys aware that there's actually a quest line to find the 5th sage? And once you've completed that quest line, the whole big thunderhead sky island that's all covered in lightning and clouds and really hard to navigate clears up and you can actually navigate it. You still have to deal with the lightning, but if you do this last and follow the quest line, and you did a side quest over in the Gerudo Desert, you can get the Thunder Helm. So lightning's no longer a problem for you. So, what are your guys'?
I did the quest line. I followed the quest line. I actually watched Pro play part of this one, so I was like, oh, okay, that's easy to do. I know how to do that. Someone.
I had no idea there was a quest line to clear up the lightning. No joke. I never completed it until after I had already gotten the 5th sage. I literally was watching the screen for lightning strikes to figure out where the next place I could fly to safely, land there, look around, fly to the next place, and then literally land in the right spot. I'm like, ha-ha, I'm done with you. And then actually afterwards, sat there and was just like, oh, by the way, there's a quest for this. I'm like,
Go ahead.
you finish.
Well, what I was going to say is that the construct production facility that's in the depths, after, you know, I had completed the main part of the game, I was like, you know what, I wonder how difficult it is to actually get to the construction facility if you don't do it the way that they recommend you get to it. It's actually kind of a pain in the bottom in order to get to the production facility from the depths, anywhere than the spot where they actually tell you to go. Any other thoughts, guys?
Play the quest line. Don't skip it. Don't be crazy. Do what they say to, because no joke, it was literally lightning strikes and, oh, there's an outline over there. Fly over there. Luck.
So we only have 2 minutes left, so we were going to do a bingo on, you know, different, you know, benefits and disadvantages to having a linear plot. But I think with only 2 minutes, we'll, you know,
We'll instead just take questions and comments.
yeah. And I will reveal the bingos. Oh, or not. So, does anyone have any questions or thoughts, comments on, you know, your playthrough of Tears of the Kingdom?
If you played it again, would you change the way that you played it the first time?
Yes. Yes, 100% don't play the way I played.
To be fair, the second time, like I've created a second file for myself because I want to preserve my first one. I still haven't left the Sky Island for that one because I'm trying to go through and collect everything first. Before I was kind of focusing on, okay, what's the story here? Will it give me an actual like plot line I can follow? Now I'm more playing her style.
Yeah, if you guys really want to play Buckwild style, play my style. It sucks.
Completionist.
I do have that problem. I do have that problem.
Dang.
It doesn't help that it's a Zelda game, and well, Zelda's my favorite series, so it drives me crazy. Anything else? Comments, concerns?
Okay, no one has anything. I want to make it. Oh, you got one? Go.
I was gonna say, I know that you kind of touched on this before, but I really felt that for Tears of the Kingdom,
and the Dragon Tears were like a critical plot point, and it's one of those things where like
I think that's the one L this game took, is that the Dragon Tears, they should have made that a little clearer. Granted, I found Impa, and Impa told me, hey, there's tears. There's something here. I assume you just kind of stumbled onto the tears, and that like gave you the spoilers. Yeah, Impa gave me the first one, and I was like, oh, okay, so you want this. Got it. Got it.
So it is now our time. Thank you all for coming. If you have any questions or concerns, I'm always available.
Reference to everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Chuck.
So yeah, I hope you all have a great time. Be safe. Love you all. Bye.
If you want to chat,
Yeah, if you see us, feel free to come up to us and we can discuss Zelda or any other games that you enjoy and love.
yeah, feel free to natter with us.
Yes.